On today's show, the Capitals fall to the Penguins in the regular season finale, and the Capitals prepare to take on the Habs in the first round of the playoffs.
You're Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Dan Holme. I've covered the Capitals for the last 3 seasons for Locked On and various other outlets before that. I'm also the host of the weekly show called The Capitals Minutecast, available wherever you find your podcasts. And as always, I want to thank you for making this your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. So in this edition of Locked On Capitals, I break down the Capitals versus the Canadiens in the first round of the playoffs. This is what it's all about. This is the culmination of some truly great hockey coming to fruition. The fruits of your labor are that if you play some really great hockey during the regular season, you get to do some big boy stuff and play in the postseason. Giddy up. The Capitals are preparing to take on the Canadiens on Monday night. I'll break that all down. A bit later, Clay Stevenson made his NHL debut. Now listen, he has had some call-ups before, but this was his first real NHL action. And I'll talk about that. He actually played well despite the final score. But just to get it going here, I'm going to talk about the Capitals falling to the Pens in the regular season finale. But ultimately, that's okay. Give those Penguins players something to cheer about, as it is going to be yet another long summer for them. As far as the Capitals are concerned, they have some meaningful spring and summer hockey to play. I'd really like to just stick the salt in the wounds against the Penguins, as they are the bitter rivals. But the Capitals riding high, and I say riding high despite losing 5-2 tonight. And you take a look at it, you can make a lot of these games towards the end of the season, and I've done a fair share of that. But this game in particular tonight saw a very depleted lineup. That you saw some key players: Carlson, Marty, just a bunch of different players that were out of the mix that were normally in the mix. That I don't think that there was any real high hopes of the Capitals winning this game. I think it was about the players that were maybe dinged up, or the feeling was that they needed to get well. Maybe there are some players that had some injuries or just a little banged up that we weren't too aware of. That the Capitals will in fact be able to hit the ground running on Monday as they prepare to take on the Canadiens. This is what it's all about. You take a look at the Capitals last season, getting eliminated in short order in the playoffs, that we don't want that to happen this season. I stand by my assessment that it is the Capitals playing in the Stanley Cup final, or this season is a bust. I do believe it. I'm happy that they made it to the playoffs, but all things considered, we're ready to see this team take it to the next level. I have the bar set rather high. How about you guys at home there? I don't like to set the bar too low and just settle for mediocrity. I expect a lot out of this team. So let's dive into the latest tonight. Again, the regular season finale against the Penguins. How fitting it was that the two bitter rivals close it out. But a lot different this season than, in years before. The Capitals have been on the other end of this before as well, where the Penguins played very well. So it felt good that the Capitals were in this position. And, ultimately would have been good if they won this game. But just considering all the players that were out of the mix, Carlson, Faravari, Roy, not to mention Protas and Logan Thompson, it would have been a real uphill battle, and it would have been a true statement, I guess, about how awful that Penguins team is. But the Capitals did. They faced quite an uphill battle, missing those key defenders. That left them with only 5 defensemen and 13 forwards while rookie goaltender Clay Stevenson made his NHL debut, and I'll talk about him a little bit later. But a great moment for Clay Stevenson. He is the guy that was supposed to be the face of the future in net for the Capitals, but I don't know if that's so much the case anymore, considering that LT is signed up to a long-term contract, and Charlie Lindgren is signed up to a 3-year deal as well. So it'll be interesting to see what the long-term plans, but that is what those players dream of. And all things considered, it was really good to see him wearing a Capital sweater in some regular season action. But I'm going to go ahead and say, unfortunately, the game ended in a 5-2 loss. Of course, I want the Capitals to win all the games, but if there were any of these games since the Capitals have clinched it that held little to no significance, tonight was the ultimate, the pinnacle of those games. Just talking about the key players that were out, it was playing a Penguins team that has been out of the mix for quite some time, that I'm not going to read too much into it. In a lot of ways, I was kind of hoping that even more players would have been rested if that's possible. You take a look at Duhaime was off the ice for a while, and what would that have meant for the Capitals had Duhaime actually been injured and missed some substantial time. But taking a look at the highlights from this game, oftentimes I talk about these games that don't go too well, but usually the silver lining in a lot of these games is Alex Ovechkin, of course, and he scored number 897 tonight, and he's to the point now, and you could tell that the game held little significance, that there's not the big group hug and, just a fist pump. It was just like, I scored a goal, small fist pump to yourself. That, I think that now that he has made it past Gretzky and he's just really driving it out there, and considering the game, I don't know if these goals, especially in a game with such little significance, really garnered a big feeling of, oh, wow, inside Ovechkin. But Strome did also have a goal overturned due to Alex Ovechkin being offsides. And had that goal been legit, and say Alex Ovechkin was onside with Dylan Strome, quite a great goal, a great release. And that Dylan Strome is pretty good, if you guys haven't noticed. A really great release. And if it had counted, it would have been one heck of a goal. But he still finished the season strong with 82 points in 82 games, his first point per game season in the NHL. And it's just getting better for Dylan Strome, if you can believe it. I really believe that's the case, because we have seen him get better and better since that he has been a part of this organization. Again, the guy that is filling that role of Nick Backstrom, and I understand Backstrom hasn't been here, but Backstrom left some incredibly big shoes to fill. That Dylan Strome has just done that in a lot of ways with the goal scoring, is just maybe even better in certain metrics. But speaking of Ovechkin, he ended the season with 44 goals, leaving him as the league's all-time leading scorer and marking an impressive 9-game point streak. So Alex Ovechkin, at the age of 39, continues to do truly great things. And you take a look at Ovechkin, he has just whatever is left of the postseason here and next season. And then it's the great unknown. Will he go over to the KHL to bookend his career where it all started? I guess we don't know, but just getting it done. And, to all the critics, to all the haters, they constantly said, Father Time is undefeated. And, you take a look at the slow start that Ovechkin got last season, that he's old. And years ago, I heard that he's fat, that it's surprising that Alex Ovechkin, even years ago, was considered one of the greatest hockey players, that even with a slight dip in production, people are willing to throw shade in your direction. But we know what Alex Ovechkin means to this team. And at 39 years old, he continues to knock it out of the park. And one of the key players, make no mistake about it, I'll talk about in the final segment, in the playoffs. If you want Mr. Clutch, look no further than Alex Ovechkin. I can kind of already envision it in my mind's eye. Alex Ovechkin with the game-winning goal against the Canadiens, somewhere in there. That's what I want to hope, at least, anyway. All right, so coming up here after the break, we'll talk about the solid debut from Clay Stevenson, a guy that has put in the work down in Hershey for quite a bit of time, splitting duties between him and Hunter Shepard. And for the longest time, the people inside the organization said was the face of the future. But you take a look, like I said, with the Capitals netminding signing long-term deals, what is the future of Clay Stevenson, and what did we see from him between the pipes tonight? I'll discuss straight ahead. Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required, just grab your paired controller, subscribe or sign into Xbox Game Plus Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and Avowed. As easily as you stream your favorite TV shows, it's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. With Wi-Fi 6, 6E, and auto low latency mode advanced technology, Fire TV Stick 4K delivers smoother, more responsive gameplay with lightning fast speeds you need to stay competitive. With 4K streaming, watch more than 1.5 million movies and TV episodes from your favorite subscribed services like Netflix, Prime Video, Disney Plus, Max, and more. Play high-quality Xbox games at a fraction of the cost of a console. Already have a console? A Fire TV Stick 4K device is more affordable and easy to travel with, allowing you to take you or your kids' games wherever you plug them in. And listen, I love my Amazon Fire. I love it for playing video games. I love it for watching television. It is an all-inclusive entertainment device. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Plus Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You can find me over on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Locked On Caps. So talking netminding, what does Dan love to talk about more than anything else? Netminding. No real clear answer why that is. It's just a position that intrigues me. It is a position that if you have, subpar goalies or netminders, that your team is going to suffer. And the one thing that I know about the Capitals is they have a glut of talent all throughout the organization, all the way from the big team in the NHL, all the way down to the ECHL, just prospects, juniors, overseas, all these kind of things, that the Capitals are in a really good position. And not too long ago, Hunter Shepard had his opportunity and was lit up in kind of a big way. And to be clear here, just to talk about that, we know that similar to tonight, that the defense was subpar. But in any event, the Capitals, they said, well, we have seen enough of Hunter Shepard right now. How about you just take the next plane or bus or car and take it back to Hershey? Let's have a look at Clay Stevenson, a netminder in the Capitals organization that had high hopes for the longest time. At 6'4", moves well in the crease. That was one of the things that was really glaringly apparent to me tonight. And Kevin Weeks as well, who knows a thing or two about being a netminder, spoke about how well he moves in the crease, confidently, challenged. Big name players, Crosby coming at him. He's like, what? Come at me. That Clay Stevenson showed a lot of promise tonight. Despite the final score, I was impressed with what I saw. The hard part, of course, is where's he going to fit in? He's not getting any younger, all of those kind of things, that it is a tough position for this guy who is 26 years old. But, the prototypical modern netminder, 6'4", 195 pounds, that I think that if he is not the long-term answer for the big team, he has at least the long-term answer in Hershey. But kind of pulling for the kid and hope that better days lie ahead, because I think that he has the raw potential. And when you hear, other netminders speak so highly of him, I'm talking Kevin Weeks, these kind of guys, that they are premier talent. But what we saw tonight, like I said, despite the final box score was most impressive. He ended the night making 33 saves, good for an .865 save percentage. A rough 15-second sequence in the third period was a turning point. And, sometimes people say, well, Dan, you really give the netminders a pass. And, I think that it's an easy conclusion to jump to if you're not watching the game as a netminder, studying the craft, that if you don't have great defense in front of you, you're not going to do too well. And I don't care who you are in the league. Some might have a better save percentage than others. But if you have subpar defenders in front of you, and I spoke earlier about the key defenders that were out of the mix tonight, that it's not going to be too easy. Now, had Clay Stevenson been playing with the regular blue liners that the Capitals have, and he suffered a similar fate, then I might be thinking to myself, well, maybe there's some truth that he's not all of that. But like I said, it was some players that necessarily weren't always the starters on the blue line for the Capitals, so I can understand while it didn't go so swimmingly. But miscommunication on a power play led to Danton Heinen scoring a shorthanded goal, followed almost immediately by Philip Tomasino's goal, which widened Pittsburgh's lead to 5-2. And, you take a look at it, the Penguins, it was the last game of the regular season. They didn't want to go out in a whimper. I mean, let's be honest here. The whole season has been a bit of a whimper for that team. And, there was, like a month or so ago, they kind of turned it on a little bit. And there's some thought like, can they do it? Kind of somewhat similar to what the Blue Jackets did, that there was a feeling that maybe they could do something. And, like I said at yesterday's show, to be clear here, Coach Sullivan is a great coach. I think that my knee-jerk reaction is that he will probably not be there next year, and it's probably the best for him, as I think there's a better opportunity behind door number 2, but a team that is in the midst of some sort of rebuild. So you knew that they were really going to throw the kitchen sink at Clay Stevenson. And they did, as was evident by the final score. But all things considered, like I say, Clay Stevenson played well considering the circumstances, but that was a lead the Capitals simply couldn't overcome. And, there was a feeling in the game when Dylan Strome scored the goal that I thought they'd be back into it. And I think that, at the end of the day, if I'm going to make an assessment on Clay Stevenson, I think he did a good job. I think he played very well. And I saw some tweets on social and different people saying, hey, look at that kid, Clay Stevenson. I say kid, relatively speaking in hockey terms, that he played very, very well. But talking about his overall performance here, he showcased some impressive lateral movement and reflexes, making a number of what I'm going to say were standout saves despite struggles from his defense. And that is something, if you look at the book on him, is his movement. It's his size. Like I say, that for some reason, if he didn't work out within the Capitals organization, I have no doubt in my mind that there is another team that would scoop him up just like that. He is, I'm not going to say NHL ready, but I'm going to say that he would be, with some more reps, like maybe being the number 3 guy for the Capitals. The kind of the default guy has been Hunter Shepard for the last bit here, that if they gave, Clay Stevenson some more reps, or, say at some point he played on another team and he got some more NHL reps, that I think that he has the makings of being an NHL netminder. That is how impressed I was tonight. The Blue Liners tonight had a tough night managing rebounds and clearing the zone. They also had some costly turnovers that the Penguins capitalized on, putting a lot of pressure on Stevenson in his NHL debut. So, you take a look at him, the nerves must have been through the roof for Clay Stevenson. But all things considered, I like what I saw. It was a cool moment that you saw his dad was at the game. There has to be a lot of flashback memories going on in his memory, taking his kid to practice, seeing him grow up, seeing him work his way up through the ranks. that it is just like, obviously a big night for Clay. But if you take a look at his father and, inevitably all he had to do as well to get him where he's at right now, I think that had to be a really cool moment for him as well. Because you take a look at it, hockey parents in general, they have to do a lot of road trips, those kind of things. So it was a cool moment. You saw that his father was smiling from ear to ear the entire night. So truly just a great moment for the team. All right, so coming up here after the break, we'll talk about Capitals versus the Canadiens, Capitals versus Habs. However you want to look at it, this is going to be interesting. The young, heavy, experienced Capitals versus the young, quick, upcoming Habs, the Canadiens. What can we expect? I'll break it all down straight ahead. The Stanley Cup playoffs are here, and if you've ever been to the live NHL playoff game, it's unlike anything else. The intensity, the speed, the energy in the building, it's next level. And thanks to Game Time, getting in the door is easier and more affordable than ever. Game Time is the fastest way to grab playoff tickets, even for those must-see matchups. Prices actually drop as puck drop gets closer, and with last-minute deals, you can save up to 60%. Save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, and theater. Shows the total cost upfront. So there's no mystery. Sometimes you're on these ticketing apps and you get to the final one and there's like a bunch of extra costs. I agreed to one price. I didn't agree to all these extra charges. Listen, Game Time doesn't do that. So no surprise fees at checkout. The app even shows you panoramic seat views so you know exactly what you're getting before you buy. And with Game Time ticket coverage, I know that I'm protected, whether it's a cancellation, job loss assurance, or just 24-hour return guarantee. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The best way that you can help grow the show is to subscribe to Locked On Capitals on YouTube and comment anything down below. In the final segment of the show here, we talk about the main event as the Capitals prepare to take on the Montreal Canadiens at home. And there is a lot at stake. And a lot to be excited about. You take a look, it was kind of coming up to the last moment here. Was it going to be the Capitals versus the Canadiens? Was it going to be the Capitals versus the Blue Jackets? And all of a sudden I got some messages from the guys at Locked On saying, this is what we're going to do. And I'm going to have a crossover episode with Locked On Canadiens here soon. So make sure and stay tuned for that. But excitement, as it is, a job well done by this team that, they played great hockey, that these new players that came to this team really helped take this team to the next level. And I think are ultimately what has put the Capitals in the position that they're in right now. So excitement. We do know that it is going to be on Monday evening is when it all gets real. So we talk about the Capitals' inconsistent play as of late. Well, they're going to have to get used to it in a hurry. We hope that the Capitals are up to the task at hand. On paper, it seems like it should be a slam dunk for the Capitals. But what have I always said? You never want to play down to your opponent. That is a young, scrappy team that maybe just doesn't have anything to lose. They were the last team to qualify for the playoffs, kind of like the Capitals were last season. So it is going to be easy. It's going to be not an easy thing taking on a team that has a lot of young talent. And like I say, I think that they have the expectation of we're just going to lay it on the line. We don't know who's going to win this. We're young. We're strong. Let's get it. So that's what the Capitals are up against. The Capitals, the top seed in the Eastern Conference, are set to take on the Canadiens in the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. And going into the playoffs this season. Obviously, I feel much more confident as the Capitals were the first team to clinch a spot this year. Remember last year, they had to kind of back into victory, and it's all kinds of awkward, them pulling their netminder with the Flyers, and yay, we won, but boo, they got fanned out in a hurry. There's a lot of excitement this year. And as the winners of the Metro Division, the Caps are heavy favorites coming into this series, but you can count out the Canadiens, who are looking to make their playoff return impactful after a 2-year absence. And if there's one thing I know, those Canadiens in Montreal, the fans of that team, they love their team, and that place is going to be a rockin' when the series goes to Montreal. So it is going to be exciting. I think the Capitals, their fan base, have a big mission. Yes, the fans at the game have a big role in this. Is you're playing in your home barn, you got to get loud, and you got to just get in the Canadiens' heads. And the big thing is the Capitals have to lean into their strengths. Big bodies. They don't have a lot of prototypical tough guys. They have some guys that are kind of tertiary tough guys, but the Capitals have the big rigs out there. You have Tom Wilson. You have ostensibly Dylan McElrath, Duhaime, these kind of guys that it could be interesting. That would be my kind of thing that I would do, is just lay out a heavy physical game first to kind of soften up the targets. I think that would work well. But let's break down the schedule. Game 1 kicks off this Monday at 7 p.m. at Cap 1, followed by Game 2 on Wednesday at the same time. So if the Capitals could get some good momentum in Game 1 at Game 2 playing at home, that could be huge, because then the series moves to Montreal for Games 3 and 4. If necessary, we'll see Games 5, 6, and 7 April 30th through May 2nd and 4th. Now, if you want my early prediction, I'm not going to give it to you. I'm going to do that on the crossover episode, but I do expect the Capitals to win this series. I'm not going to say it's going to be easy. I think that if you think it's going to be easy, and I think that, if you look at things on paper should be easy, you're setting yourself up for failure. I think that the Canadiens are going to give the Capitals a lot. I do think, however, the Capitals will be the better team. And looking at our team, we want to see them carry their stellar regular season performance into the playoffs. Let's forget about the blip on the radar, kind of the rough patch here the last kind of ever since that Midwest trip there, that hopefully they can find a return to glory. Alex Ovechkin had a phenomenal year, putting up big goals and making history as the NHL's all-time leading scorer, surpassing the great one, Wayne Gretzky. But that's all over. That's yesterday's news. It's about here, now. It's not about Ovechkin, or at least the chase. It's about what can this team do as a whole. He finished second on the team in points to Strome, who had an impressive career high in points. Taking a look at the Canadiens. The Canadiens, on the other hand, have a real strong offensive lineup as well. If you're not familiar, get familiar. The captain, Nick Suzuki, became the first Canadiens player in nearly 2 decades to hit the 80-point mark, while Cole Caulfield also had a breakout season with his personal best of 37 goals. And another player that should be familiar, or at least the last name, is Lane Hutson. Absolute beast mode for the Canadiens, who shined with 66 points in the regular season. They have some young stars, and I think that sometimes people like to discredit young stars versus like the sure things, your Ovechkins, your Crosbys, those kind of things. But make no mistake about it, I think that Suzuki, Caulfield, and Lane Hutson, those are the big three. There's other ones I think will be a lot. His performance will be vital going against the Capitals. But the most intriguing story, I've had to do a deep dive on the Canadiens. I knew some about them, but the player to circle is Ivan Demidov. As the 5th overall pick in the recent NHL draft, he's already made an impact with 1 goal and 1 assist in his first 2 games. Now, listening to some shows, getting familiar with that team, is that they are Marty St. Louis is taking the tactic with Ivan Demidov cautiously. They understand that he is a young talent, and I don't think that they want to put too much pressure on him. I think that, they want to see how well he does, kind of somewhat similar to the Ryan Leonard situation where, you've seen him kill it at different levels, but that doesn't necessarily translate to the NHL. but he is definitely a name that you want to circle. A lot of fanfare, that there were a lot of fans that actually went out to Toronto where he landed to meet him there. The hype train around Ivan Demidov is huge. Talking about the historical context, historically, these two teams have faced each other in the playoffs before. We remember most notably in 2010 when the Canadiens pulled off a shocking upset against the Caps during a 7-game series. They went on to defeat the defending champions, the Pittsburgh Penguins, in the next round. So let's hope for a different result this time. If memory serves, it was Halak in net for the Canadiens back then. But in any event, none of those players, it's a different lineup than it was back then. It might be a player here or there, but all things considered, this is the new wave. 2010, that was a long time ago, guys. It's 2025, if you didn't know. So it is going to be a different Canadiens team, but it's a team that has a lot of young players stewing in the pot, and I think they're good this year. The fact that this rebuild was a lot quicker than anyone thought, that it's going to be interesting. And I'm talking about the Canadiens here because this is who's on deck. I think that the Canadiens are going to be a really, really great team, not just this year's, but even get better in years to come. But a goaltending overview, a big component of this series will be goaltending and Logan Thompson. When will he be good to go? You know that they're not going to give him the full reins right out of the gate, considering all the time that he's missed. It's Charlie's net right now. It's Charlie's time to shine. He needs to reprise his role as Superman yet again and dig deep, like he has done this season, but more specifically last year. The very fact that the Capitals made it to the playoffs, period, was due in large part. But Logan Thompson is one of the biggest stories. One of the front runners for the Vezina. We know it's Hellebuck, and kind of the thought was, Logan Thompson at number 2. Vasilevsky's in there, but we're talking upper echelon here, that the Capitals would be exponentially better. He's been out with that upper body injury, and we know stellar season, 31-6-6 record, 2.49 goals against, and a .910 save percentage. His recovery will be crucial for our team. That's going to be one of the caveats. That's going to be one of the outliers, is that, say, Logan Thompson for some reason isn't good to go. Say he isn't able to join the team until the latter part of the series. That's good. That could be a total game changer. And then you take a look at the goaltending overview for the Habs. Sam Montembeault, big, 31 wins, 24 losses, 7 overtime losses. Jacob Dobbs had a smaller sample size with 7 wins, 4 losses, and 3 overtime. But you take a look at Sam Montembeault. He is a guy that he's not considered upper echelon, I guess, but he was one of the guys that was able to play in the Four Nations face-off. He was the backup option. Logan Thompson wasn't, and I don't want to get into that right now. But in any event, Sam Montembeault is no slouch in his own right, but Logan Thompson versus Sam Montembeault, that would be fun hockey to watch, and I hope that we get to see that before it is the tail end of the series. But taking a look at it, Nick Suzuki led the charge with a career-high 89 in points. Cole Caulfield's 37 goals helped him with 70 points, and rookie Lane Hudson with that standout 66-point season. Caulfield recently showed out, racking up 5 points with 3 goals and 2 assists in a game, and Suzuki, not the motorcycle, the man, contributed with 2 goals and 2 assists, while Hudson totaled 4 assists in 1 contest. That there is a lot of firepower on that team, and the Capitals need to be prepared. Again, they need to make the absolute most of their opportunities at home. Because we don't know when that goes out to Montreal, and that place will be a rockin', that it's going to be difficult. So if the Capitals can win games 1 and 2, I think it's going to be kind of easy street. Maybe not easy street, but easier street. I think the Capitals have it. It's Ryan Leonard stepping up, proving his worth, and the upper echelon players. All the players on the team that are 20-plus goals, that they have the offensive firepower. They have, the pedigree. They have the toughness. As far as, take a look at the Canadiens, is it Arbor Xhekaj going to come out? Is he going to be in the mix to try to take on if it is a physical match? I know that he isn't necessarily in good standings with the team right now. They have, like I say, some tertiary tough guys, but the Capitals, pound for pound, if they laid out the physical game, softening the target, kind of like a military maneuver, that could pay dividends. Wilson, Duhaime, I say McElrath, is he going to be in the mix? I don't know where he's going to fit in considering the lineup, but if he could be, that would be a good thing somehow, some way. But it's going to be an interesting series. I think the Capitals can do it, but the big thing is not underestimating your opponent, as I think the Canadiens are going to be much more difficult than a lot of people think. All right, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, your only daily year-round podcast covering the Capitals. And I want to thank all of you that listen on the audio side and watch this on YouTube. You are what makes this show successful. When you're done here, head on over to Locked On NHL, as they have you covered 5 days a week, covering all of the NHL, available wherever you find your podcasts and on YouTube. All right, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It is your team every day. My name is Dan Holme, and I'll talk to you again next time.